Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland on Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland on Points. Let the adventure begin. Welcome back to Wonderland on Points. Happy December. I hope that all of you are getting your Christmas decorations out and getting into the spirit.
Is here.
I don't know if I can harmonize with you. I could certainly try. It might not go well. But I am listening to all the songs, all the carols. I love Christmas music.
I love Christmas music. And wait, speaking of Christmas music, you remember our friend Mandy Brooke, who was on the podcast?
Yes, of course we remember Mandy.
She wrote a Christmas song. And you know, a lot of her songs are comedies, and I love them, and they're so funny. But she wrote a Christmas song about the first time that she saw snow when she was 7 years old. And this song is so beautiful. She sounds like a Disney princess.
It is so beautiful.
I keep playing it in the car with my nanny kiddos. We're driving around in the chilly air, seeing Christmas lights. And it's really a magical song. I want everyone to go listen to it if you haven't already. It's called Snow a Little by Mandy Brooke. Do not try to voice search it on your Google Home because it will actually
with kids
not.
in the car.
It will not work. It will play. Maybe it might play one of her other songs or a little boo thing. So just search it. Search the whole name on your, Apple Music or wherever you listen. You can find it. You just have to type the whole thing in. And it is such a treat for those of you that like Christmas music. So I did want to stick that in here because I just love it. So, okay, moving on.
Love it.
We have such an episode.
Such a big episode. So I had a lot of people reach out to me asking about United Airlines and learning more about the United program, because we always want to cover, especially the US-based airlines. Our listeners do, of course, international travel, but a lot of domestic travel too. So it's good to focus in on the airlines. Last week, we learned a lot about Delta. This week, it is United. So we're going to focus on United with our friend Tommy from Travel Like Tommy. He's going to dig into the United MileagePlus program a little bit, and then talk about something interesting that we really haven't discussed much on the show, and that's the idea of buying points. Sometimes you can buy points for different airlines or hotels, and sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's not. So we're going to get into that with Tommy.
Guys, the main example he gives us talking about buying points truly blew my mind. I'm actually kind of excited to dig into it more. So I'm really, really pumped for you guys to hear this. And if you don't know a lot about the United program, this will just be an interesting overview for you. I have to say, I don't live in a United hub, but I am close to one in Chicago. And so I feel like I learned a lot about how I could harness this program for my uses, which, it's not a ton of United flying that I would be doing, but I really figured out when talking with Tommy where I can get value, what cards might be a good fit for me. So we really hope that you guys enjoy this episode as much as we did. He is a fascinating person. He lives a very cool digital nomad life. I think for a lot of us with families, it's super fun to hear about kind of this flip side of what it looks like to be a full-time traveler. So he's really, really interesting, but he's also super helpful when it comes to teaching people how to really maximize their points and their earning. It's his whole business. So you guys are going to like this episode. It's a good one.
Let's roll it.
Let's do it.
Well, guys, we are so blessed to be joined by our friend Tommy, who we met over at the Travel More conference. Tommy, you can find him on Instagram at Travel Like Tommy. Points and miles is his whole world. This is your full-time job and business. So tell everybody a little bit about what you do in the points and miles space.
Yeah. So, somehow I was fortunate enough to turned my passion for travel and then obviously the points and the miles into a business. I started doing this for myself when I was like 23 years old, right after college. Let's just say I went very deep down the rabbit hole. And then
Yes.
just about 4 years ago, I quit my job, sold my car, broke up with my girlfriend, and bought a one-way ticket to Dubai
Wow.
to go all in on turning this into a business. And
Wow.
it's been a wild journey. But essentially, what we do now is we do consulting with business owners and entrepreneurs primarily. And we help them play the game, help them maximize their points earnings and maximize their travel. And their time is the most valuable. So that was like, who can we provide the most value to? Who's got the least amount of time? And that was really what our target audience was for that. And yeah, we're about 4 years into it now and still rocking and rolling. The company's Freedom Travel Systems.
That's awesome. And for anybody who just listened a few weeks ago, we had Allison on. Allison works with Tommy at Freedom Travel Systems. So just to
Yes,
make that connection for everyone.
She is our points queen. So she was actually our first. She was our first hire. So I run everything on the client success and fulfillment side. So Allison was my first hire, and she is absolutely
awesome.
amazing.
Love her.
If there's one person that I would say it has my level of knowledge, it's Allison, and she's probably got me beat by a few notches even.
We did describe her on the podcast as the human seats arrow because that's how she was described to us. So
oh yeah, it just runs in the head. If the website's ever down, she'll just be able to do it in her head.
It's incredible. It's incredible. We had the greatest time talking to her, and we're so excited that you're here today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you are basically a full-time digital nomad now. So tell us how many countries you've visited, maybe in the last 4 years. Like, give us that time period.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, we're literally coming right up on the 4-year mark. But in the last 4 years, I think I've been. Well, we got repeat countries, obviously, lots of those.
Right.
But I think I've been to 105 different countries in the last 4 years.
Wow. Wild. Okay, yeah. I have to ask this question because this is what we hear from full-time travelers a lot. Is travel still fun for you? Or are you tired of traveling?
You know what? I think, it's all still it was all really exciting. And then the first hardest part was back during my 9 to 5, I was an executive chef. I had limited vacation time, but when I was on vacation, we're on vacation, right?
Yes.
So the transition from, okay, dude, like, yeah, you can have fun, but if you want to keep this going, we gotta learn some new habits here. Travel is fun, but the work hard, kind of play hard thing. And then my other biggest piece with kind of coming into this, I've been doing it for a while, but in terms of the social media and the personal brand and stuff like that, I didn't want to be the person that just talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be the person that was just doing it,
and
doing it bigger and badder than than anybody else out there. So you factor in, I think I average about 120 flights a year. I'm all over the place, but
my goodness,
doing that, scaling a business, scaling a team. I hit a little, last year was tough. I definitely had to scale it back just in terms of the amount of movement, but of course it's still fun, but I got to look at it on a little different way. But trust me, I'm looking forward to, in January, I'm taking like 2 full weeks, like zero work, and that'll be good.
That's good for you. I'm honestly super fascinated that you just said your previous life you were an executive chef. Like, what a shift. I feel like if I dig into that, we'll go on a tangent the wrong direction. So I'm just going to acknowledge how cool that is. And then we can move on from that. But that also makes me think that food. So maybe we should end at the end today. Don't let me forget. We're going to come back to it. You're going to tell us the top 3 meals you've ever had. Okay,
Ooh,
and where to find them. So
I'll have to think on that one.
Be thinking in the back of your head, because we're going to circle back. Do not let me forget. I have to know.
Got you.
Okay. All right, we're on it. Well, today, the focus of our episode, we kind of have 2 focuses. Number 1, I've been getting a lot of questions about United Airlines, and you are well-versed in a lot of airlines. Many of our listeners are curious about United because it is one of the U.S.-based airlines. Mm-hmm. That's especially exciting because when you go to Europe or elsewhere in the world, you don't have the taxes and fees tacked onto your ticket. So if you really want to fly for the lowest price out of pocket, then you can go to Europe for $5 in taxes and
Yeah.
fees. And that is pretty appealing for a lot of listeners. So we want to dig into the United's MileagePlus loyalty program. And I know the feeling on this is a little bit mixed, and you're going to tell us more about that. But give us kind of an overview of the MileagePlus program.
Yeah, for sure. So, of our big domestic three carriers, and we got United, American, Delta, they're each, they've each got their positives, they each got their negatives. None of them are perfect. And, just in terms of what your travel goals are, how you actually go about traveling, how frequent do you travel? It doesn't mean there's any one single best program. It's really going to be the best one that's for you. But I was with United, probably have like maybe 300,000 to 400,000 lifetime miles, but I was in Chicago and Denver, so it just made sense because of the flights. I was able to get anywhere and everywhere, more or less nonstop. So that was kind of my main thing. It did the job for me.
Yeah, when
but
you're
then,
in one of those hubs, it's hard not to focus in on one airline.
Yep. And then this is like one of the bigger shifts, especially now that, we've really been working with business owners and stuff like that, where, suddenly you have a different kind of value of your time at the same time as well, too. So yes, you've got that idea of like, okay, well, hey, I can book this for half the price because trust me, I did many, many, many of flights in the back of the bus, extra connections. Like I was doing all that travel in my 20s.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I think it's just the timepiece, but when you've got majority of your travel right there in front of you, I think that's just a huge factor, regardless of your airline.
Yeah, nonstop is pretty key for me, especially because I'm a family traveler. I often have my kids with me when I travel, and the thought of connecting with 3 young children is not very appealing. So I often let nonstop flights dictate what I book for sure.
Bingo. Okay, so what you just hit is that's essentially like the whole theme to this game is you got two ways to go about this, right? You either plan your points the best you can around your travel.
Mhm.
Maybe you get lucky sometimes, you get some good wins, or you plan your travel around the best use of your points. So
Yes.
just like you're saying, like, hey, I'm looking for somewhere that's nonstop and it's a good deal. I don't necessarily care. Maybe the where the win piece isn't important. I'm looking for that deal. And that theme is how you really max this game out in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to remind everybody that their business is averaging, what is it, 4.25 cents per point, over millions of points redeemed. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So it's all numbers too. I said we track all this stuff
I
from
love
their
it. I
points
love it.
earnings to the redemptions. So yeah, we nerd out on this stuff. Obviously, we like to have fun, but it's all in the numbers because to be able to see that, we have some clients that we hold, that we do for a service for an entire year. So when we go to show them what we did over the last year, we've got like insane numbers, but we're averaging about, we'll probably finish the year with about like 150 to 200 million points redeemed total. We're
Wow.
averaging 4.9 cents per point this year.
4.9.
And it's just some further context on how insane that value is like I said, our clients they're crazy busy business owners. They've got extreme preferences. They don't want to take the connections. So in terms of like to be able to deliver that kind of value still with very little to no kind of flexibility, but that's kind of part of the thing too, where as long as I can build their trust and I can get them to trust
Mm.
me, I'm going to tell you when we're going to score. Assume everything's good, but we might need to wait a little bit closer to departure to kind of get you in that deal. So there's lots to kind of
Oh,
go
yeah,
into it,
last
but
minute.
we do a lot of points for the clients, and then I average myself in between 3 and 4 million points just for my travel every single year. So
Oh my goodness, I
Wow.
can't even comprehend.
Yeah, me neither. But okay, sorry, I just wanted to remind everyone of that because it blows my mind. Let's get back into United. So
oh yeah.
we know that you feel that their loyalty program has declined maybe over the
Mm-hmm.
years. I was digging into a little bit, just trying to see what kind of flights are available. From the hubs, I was finding a lot of nonstop domestics for like under 6,000 points. And then I was finding some to Europe, to London flights from the hubs for around 22,000 in economy. And then, of course, United Polaris around 80,000. And the crazy thing is it's $5.60 taxes for all of these, no matter if you're flying business or not. So those sound pretty decent
Yeah.
in the
Pretty good.
redemption world. So
Yeah.
I want to know what you feel is the downside these days. What's changed in their program? Why have your feelings shifted?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, they're all, 9 out of the 10 changes, regardless of the airlines, they're generally bad. Occasionally we get some good ones kind of sprinkled in there. So, and I would say just kind of unique, maybe not necessarily unique to United, but, there's a big shift to, kind of what they call like dynamic pricing. Back in the day,
yes.
there would be X amount of miles from here to here. And, cash rates go up, cash rates go down. That would stay the same if those fares were available.
Mm-hmm.
Now, airfares obviously increased over the years. So therefore, now that we have this dynamic pricing, higher cash price, it's all supply and demand. Then we're going to have more miles. But then at the same time, not as often, it might actually work in your favor to where that flight that used to be 12,500 for like a domestic economy, just like you said, you might see that for 6,000. And if you're planning your travel around, hey, I want a nonstop flight at a saver rate, well, we got to do the research and figure out where and when I can do that, right?
Yep.
So definitely still some wins there, especially like, on the economy side. And then also when you're flying on United's metal. So there are some benefits there. So like not flying with the partner airline, they will price those a little bit differently. But if we're flying on United, the dynamic pricing can work in your favor sometimes. So I would say that is actually a win. Okay. Now, I think some other things, obviously the low taxes and fees. I mean, that's anytime I just booked an Emirates flight to go climb Kilimanjaro after Christmas here.
So cool.
I used points, but then I paid $830 in taxes and fees. And I was excited about it, but that leaves a salty taste. You're like, what's the point of using points here? So, to take that complete cash factor out, that's a win. So I think that's one of the strengths that they have. I don't see that changing. They've got a couple other kind of like newer things where there's this whole thing of like points pooling. So if we've got, accounts with all the families, at the end of the day, you don't really need to pool your points. But again, it's something that you can do now. And then one of the other big things I like about United in general is, they're just a super consistent product across all of their aircraft. They started the Polaris transition, almost a decade ago. But in terms of all the other carriers, especially if you're looking to fly business class, if you're on a wide body plane, you're going to get the same seat. Where these other ones, you might show up on the plane and maybe it's not the seat you were hoping for and you get a little disappointed.
Yes.
Right?
For sure.
So like I said, I think, and there are still some sweet spots, like I said, the dynamic pricing. There's another cool thing called the excursionist perk. It essentially allows you to get an extra flight when you're booking an award ticket, and you can get super creative with that. Don't need to dive into the details of it, but essentially all you have to do is like you could fly the US to Europe and then from Africa back to the US. They kind of call it like an open jaw. Take some tinkering, but you can kind of double down or get, 2 places for the price of one. And then I would say the other, I think the other kind of last thing they'll do is, they do offer a lot of like promotions, where again, maybe they are miles or sales on like award redemptions. I think a couple of years ago, there was one for French Polynesia, and it was like, I don't remember the exact amount, but I mean, it was like 20,000 points for economy. I don't know what the business was, but they have been doing some promotions, and then they also do that. It's called like MileagePlus or something like that, where like they're going to give you, hey, take 2 or 3 flights in the next couple months. We're going to give you some bonus miles. So back when I was doing United, that was always a nice little, extra 10, 20,000 points a year.
Absolutely.
So I would say, those are my positives overall.
Okay, good.
And again, I take this back to, guys, there's no right or wrong program. It's, hey, if you're in a hub and there's convenience, there's other factors you want to take in to this besides, the taxes, the fees, the prices. But, we want to be able to make decisions and have options. So now on to the negatives. So I think, a lot of them, we just had a recent devaluation. So like going to Europe in business class. Womp womp. But hey, like I said, not unique to United. I get worried when I don't see a devaluation come. I'm like, I just know it's coming. I think I mentioned Travel Summit. Alaska miles are really valuable, but I smell a devaluation coming
I know.
soon.
Yeah.
I'm so scared.
Yep. Well, hey, earn them and burn them. But sticking on United, because I can easily go on a tangent here.
Same.
Um, so I think, obviously the devaluations, 90% of the time, you're going to lose. So that 88K business class used to be 60K. They're
Mm,
charging a little bit more for partners now. And then I think my biggest thing, this is why I actually switched, was just the amount of spend and
mhm,
flights needed to get status. It was
mm,
insane. Where I think this year, I think it's $24,000 in in pure spend, your butt in the seat, um, to hit 1K status, and it's like that's kind of ludicrous.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think just the ability to earn status, which again, it's only valuable if you're really a frequent flyer. But overall, like I said, I think it's not unique to United. There's going to be devals, and then like I said, it's just all about the spend now. It's no more. Nobody's like, oh, you got to fly, in the seat 25,000 miles. It's no, you got to spend 25K. We don't care if you take 2 flights. So I think that's just a negative kind of overall, but
Yeah.
it's a great program. I like it better than Delta.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Because Janelle's talking about Delta. So you guys are going to
Yeah.
have like head to head
Yeah.
episodes here.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't, in terms of their product and stuff like that, it's probably better than United and American in a lot of cases. But in terms of same thing with the spend, what I can actually do with the miles,
Mm,
and that's my biggest piece is, okay, I'm flying with United, but what can I do with these miles, right? So I'm going
mhm.
to pay cash when I need to pay cash, earn my miles, but in my head I'm like, okay, I'm being loyal to this airline for what reason?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, sometimes convenience, but what I can do with an American airline mile in terms of the types of travel I want to do,
Right.
big
So
difference.
much more. Yeah, so much
Big
more.
difference. So
Yeah.
what I did, I think I did the challenge. I did a status challenge last year with American,
Mm,
and I still had my United. I think I was just gold last year. I lost my 1K, but for about, this year I'll probably hit executive platinum status with about 8 to 10K total out of pocket
With
yeah.
American
instead of
Airlines? Yeah.
$24,000 out of pocket.
Yeah. And American, you can use the shopping portal to work towards the status, which is,
Exactly.
huge. All those meal kits come into my house over and over.
It sounds silly, but like I said, status is going to be valuable. But with American, though, that whole change to the loyalty programs, it's insane how you're able to get those loyalty points in ways outside of flying,
Yeah.
where all the other
Yes.
airlines, it's your butt in the seat,
Yep.
or you're spending a substantial amount on the credit card and then sacrificing points you could be earning more
Right.
strategically.
So, getting into United credit cards and actual
Mm-hmm.
spend on their cards, we know that for us in the points and miles game, generally sign up bonuses are huge and we kind of bounce around earning various sign up bonuses every
Mm-hmm.
year rather than staying loyal to one credit card and just running up tons of spend on a single credit card. But I will say NerdWallet gave the United Explorer card a Best of 2024 award for its
Mm-hmm.
benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So United has 4 personal cards: Gateway, the Explorer, the Quest, and the Club Infinite. So do you think any of them are worth having? Is that Explorer card worth
Yeah.
having?
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it's going to be a different kind of use case for everybody, right? So, what's great with these co branded credit cards is not necessarily for the spend. We're going to call this what we call a supplemental card. There's something
Okay.
about this card that either saves me money, saves me time, or there's some other kind of benefit to it. So, with these United cards, especially for anybody, this is with any airline really, but if you don't fly enough cash to earn status or it's not worth you spending otherwise, having one of these credit cards is going to give you some of those entry level type benefits, whether it's priority boarding. You do one trip with checked bags, that $99 annual fee you got to basically check one bag over the course of the entire year to pay the annual fee.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, I kind of tell everybody where it's like, hey, if we're spending less than $5K a year on flights, it doesn't pay to be loyal to an airline, because those entry level benefits you can get from a $99 a year credit card, like the United Explorer card, for example. So for anybody that's not in the status world or not traveling frequently enough for that to make sense, 100% should have one of those cards. And I wouldn't necessarily put spend on it. But again, if you're going to get a United Explorer card, great entry. We'll get a sign-up bonus. You're going to get your bags. You're going to get your priority access. So we said we're heightening the travel experience a little bit. But again, like I said, I still wouldn't put spend on that card, though.
No, absolutely not. And we all know that Chase transfers to United. So, I personally would not do that, because my Chase points are my Hyatt points almost exclusively. Like, I'm pretty stingy with them.
You're smart.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I think so. Those Hyatts, we were talking with Allison about how we plan based on where a Hyatt is, and I do the exact same thing. So you would recommend to people, if they like have aspirations to fly United Polaris, go towards getting a card and getting a sign-up bonus rather than using your transferable currencies to do something like that?
Yeah. So actually, I'm going to kind of say the opposite. So I think what we want to do is, well, hey, we're going to get that sign-up bonus and we're going to use it however we want to use it, right? But really, like I said, that primary piece of that card is it's going to be that cash saver over the course of the year. Like I said, go to the bags, the change fees. The stuff adds up even with limited use. But we want to be putting all of our spend onto a transferable point earning card, Chase Reserve, Amex, Citi, Capital One, because that flight to that 88,000 point flight in business in Polaris to Europe, you can book that for 60,000 Air Canada points. By taking your Chase points.
That is interesting. I didn't even think about that, because what I did notice is that transfer bonuses from Chase to United are not a thing that you
non-existent.
So
but they will be for Air Canada, and you might get that 60K for 48K. And so it's all about, think like this, like, hey, I want to fly United, or there's way better ways to book Polaris than through its own program, whether it's Air Canada, Avianca. So that whole idea of those transferable points, if you have a transferable point, you can fly any product on any airline,
right,
and book it at the cheapest cost. So that's where I kind of keep going back to, hey, we don't want to spend on these co-branded cards. We don't want to go all in on one airline from the mileage purpose. We want flexibility. We want to be able to book that for even cheaper. In Air Canada, they have super low taxes and fees as well, too. So in terms of like, it's a little more than $5, but if I can save 20,000 points for $50.
Absolutely.
All day, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about United Polaris. You mentioned it. It's a very aspirational business class product.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about it for people who have not yet experienced it. Why is it so wonderful? You did mention the consistency among aircraft, which is awesome, because we were talking earlier before the interview about Virgin and how sometimes you could still get the coffin seats versus the nicer product. So tell us more about United Polaris.
Yeah. So Polaris was actually my first actual business class, first class was United. And they started to do the branding with Polaris before all the planes were retrofitted. So I had the older seats, but in terms of you get your Saks Fifth bedding, and suddenly I'm getting fed like real food and having a few drinks, and so that experience in itself was great.
Yeah, which comes, former executive chef, so that does hold some weight. The good food.
Yeah, but I was like, okay, this is how we travel, sweet. But then essentially, of the U.S. carriers, United was the first one to really kind of totally revamp their premium cabin, with Polaris. Now, American's got a new one coming out. Delta's got a couple of great products, but United's consistent across the entire fleet. You know exactly what you're getting. They might have one or two aircraft left with the old ones, but the overall, the hard product, being the seat itself, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. And again, that was one of my first ever, redemptions. So it does hold a special place in my heart. And then I think kind of going back to the idea of like all kind of like those partner airlines and stuff. Once you start flying some of these, maybe like some of the Asian carriers or the Middle Eastern carriers, when we start talking about the soft product being, the food, the service, all that kind of stuff, that kind of takes it up to a next level. But again, going to be same whether it's American, United, or Delta. But in terms of, like I said, the seat itself, especially if you're traveling with a companion in those middle seats,
Yeah.
it's awesome. And it's I would say this, it's the perfect entryway to, hey, I've never flown business or first class before. I want to do it.
It'll blow your socks off.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So give someone a pitch for why they should spend 80 or maybe 60,000 to do United Polaris versus trying to grab one of the Virgin flights for $29K. As long as you do the research and make sure you're in one of the newer products, like why is it worth spending 2-3 times the points for Polaris, or is it?
Yeah, well, again, same thing. We can still book Polaris for less than 88K. Through some of the partners. So that same kind of idea applies there. But again, okay, let's say I can still book Polaris for 60K from Chicago to London. Wide open availability, just heads up there. You'll find it all day.
I live very close to Chicago, so
there you
that's
go.
Very appealing to me.
Yeah. Okay, so we got 60K plus, I don't know, maybe actually London will be a little more expensive. So that was a bad example for taxes and fees. But let's just say 60K points, minimal fees. Okay, we go to Virgin or even Flying Blue, which has fantastic promo awards, but now we start talking the taxes and fees.
Yeah, true.
Flying Blue, you're looking at anywhere from $200 to $350 in taxes and fees, depending where you're starting, where you're going. And then same thing with Virgin. Virgin, I think they've just made some changes. I got to do a little homework on that one, but just like I was talking about Emirates, where it's like, oh God, I'm excited, but like I still just spent, Virgin flying into London was like, $800 or $900. So it's like, okay, I booked it for 30K, but I'm still out of pocket.
I found it in late January for like $270 in business class out of pocket, but it was the older product. So I think if you're flying that newer product, you're going to see a big jump there. So that is a very good pitch.
On my hit list. But I would say again, I think that was actually a rare positive change was, I don't know the exact dollar amounts, so I just got to catch up. But Virgin did, they did drop those, the award taxes and fees, the fuel surcharges, still a few $100, but they did come way down on that. So it is something that's definitely worth considering now. So it's just like, okay, it's $500 and 30,000 points, or it's 60,000 points and $50.
I do it. 100%. Yeah. We have a lot of listeners that their whole goal is least out of pocket. We have a lot of families who listen, and that is really like how a lot of us plan our trips. So that's a very good pitch. And if you can do it from the center of the country and you don't have to go to a coast, that's also pretty nice.
We're not all lucky enough to be at a hub airport, but if we are, even better, right?
Well, I'm in St. Louis, so I'm not quite in a hub, but it's very easy to get to Chicago from.
Hey everybody, we are going to get right back into today's episode, but first we want to tell you about a way that you can support the podcast. If we are bringing value to you, if you are learning new things that can help your family travel more for less, then consider buying us a coffee.
We put a ton of hours of work into this podcast every single week, and it is our mission and our goal to teach you guys how to travel on points, to create a space where you guys feel like you're just sitting down with a friend to have a cup of coffee. We want you to laugh. We want you to cry. We want you to hear all of the vacation stories that will inspire you and your family. So if you are getting value from us and you are enjoying these episodes, this is such a great way to show your support.
So visit buymeacoffee.com/Wonderland on points. When you choose to become a sponsor of the podcast through Buy Me a Coffee, you are actually helping us get the money that we need to buy nicer equipment, a new computer for Joe. We have some very tangible items that this will help with. So we hope you will consider it. Now back to today's episode.
All right. So before we move on to the topic of buying points, let's talk clubs lounges. How do you think the United clubs compare to other airport lounges? As a newbie in the lounge world, I just went to my very first, in fact, two lounges in one day in Dallas, and that was very exciting. There are no lounges to speak of in St. Louis, so it's not been on my radar at all, but it was incredible. Best day of my life. All the food.
Lounge life. It's real.
Yeah. And as an executive chef, what we really want to know is, are these places you can get amazing food? Because I thought the food at the Capital One Lounge was incredible. I did not expect it to taste as good as it did. So talk us through United clubs.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, not necessarily unique to United, but in terms of like those airline clubs, United, American, Delta, and then there's going to be credit card lounges, there's going to be partner lounges, but in terms of those domestic lounges, regardless, especially if you're used to looking through the windows in the lounge, like what's going on in there,
Right.
anything is awesome, especially early on, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, I can't go back. It's like just the same like business class. Once you fly business or first class in a long haul, it's kind of like doing it any other way. It's hard. So just having that access is huge. And, whether you're getting work done, whether it's, I do like to have, a drink or two on travel days, let's just say, and the ability to have, a comfortable place to go, to have food, to have drink or drinks. It's huge. And this kind of goes back to the whole idea with those credit cards where, hey, is this saving me time? Is this saving me convenience? Is this saving me money? I'm sure the listeners do this. Like, yeah, you plan a trip. Okay, maybe you use some points, but especially if you have family, how much money did you just spend at the airport?
Absolutely.
Right. Oh my goodness.
On your $8 bottles of water. That's right there.
Right. So that's really to take all those kind of factors in, especially when you start talking like annual fees. You're like, oh, annual fee, free bags, priority access, lounge. It adds up, right?
Absolutely.
So the lounges, again, awesome experience. Just be careful because once you have lounge access, you don't ever go back. The food's good, and I think there's been a lot of improvements. And I actually applied for. I worked for a bigger company called Sodexo, and they actually ran all the United Club lounges. I'm not sure if they still do, but I actually applied for a job at the Denver airport a decade ago.
That's awesome.
But then I found out I wasn't going to be a United employee, so I didn't get any of the perks. So I'm like, yep.
Oh, okay.
They've definitely upped it. You're not going to get a gourmet meal.
Okay.
At least at the main ones, but it's still they've improved, 100% improved.
Okay.
And a cold beer and a glass of wine, I mean, that's going to be the same regardless.
Right.
But once you get into the Polaris Lounge or the AA Flagship Lounge, that's when let's just call it the culinary experience, or the other parts of just a travel day in general. It's experience, whether it's the flight, the checking in, the lounge. But in terms of that travel experience, like really kicking off is when you can get into some of those premium lounges, and then you're like, but again, we'll start slow. We want to work our way up to those. But they're great. And again, once you have lounge access, you'll never go back.
Absolutely. Do you happen to know off the top of your head which of the cards grants you lounge access?
So again, if being in a lounge makes sense for how you travel or who you travel with, so do the other perks and benefits of that United card, especially, guys, again, if we're not spending more than $4,000 a year on flights, we don't need to be loyal to an airline. So especially for those people that are, in that neighborhood or a little bit less, probably way less, I still might fly United 4 or 5 times a year. The more I fly it, the more, benefit savings I'm going to get. So having lounge access, okay, you're going to pay, I think it's the United Infinite card.
Okay.
And there's a United Business card as well too. You're going to get the priority boarding, the free check bags, all that kind of jazz. But then now we're also getting lounge access. So if we run the math here, again, the listeners will have to kind of run it in their own head, but I think it's let's just say it's $600. I don't know the exact, it's $500 or $600. Am I going to get $500 in value? Is this going to pay me back enough over the course of the year for this to make sense?
Yes.
Right. And it's crazy. It's like we don't need a ton of opportunities for that to make sense. You take 2 or 3 trips, especially with the family.
Yes.
You're in the green
Yeah.
all
Do you
day.
know how many people you can get in with the card? Some cards let you bring in your whole family. Some cards, it's like just one person.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd have to double check on that. And then part of that will also be like, hey, what cabin are you flying on? Do you have any kind of status? But generally, the biggest piece is like you always want to make sure you're booked on like the same reservation.
Okay.
For sure, there's at least one guest, but I think it could be like 4 or 5. Don't quote me on that one. But either way, yes, you will get a guest. I always recommend you all book on the same ticket, so there's not any issues. But United's way more generous with the guest policy than like Delta is, for example, or some of the Centurion lounges. So don't quote me on that one.
Yeah.
But again, you can get in there, or maybe there's a discount for bringing on additional guests.
I'll find an article. I'll link it in the show notes for everybody.
There you go. Yep. But then, hey, we don't do the lounge. That United Explorer card for $99. Wait till there's a nice bonus of like 80,000 points. When you need to pay cash for a flight, fly with United. You'll get your bags free. You'll get priority boarding, change fees. So semi-frequent traveler, we want a lounge. Infinite card is a great kicker, but in terms of like limited travel, but still massive savings, the Explorer card's a perfect card for that. And it has a nice sign-up bonus every now and then too.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Good. I feel like we've really hit United. Let's chat now about your topic. And I have to be honest, I was not in your session because I was working for Ashley and I was sitting right outside at the table. So I missed it. But Mary Ellen was in there. So I'm going to let her ask a few questions about what she learned in there, because all I know is it was about buying points, which is not something we talk about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at Travel More, you gave us some ideas for when it actually really does make sense to buy points, because generally when people see these flashy offers, it's not really the best thing to do to buy points, but you are changing minds about that. So give us some really specific examples of when it does make sense to buy a specific currency. So you'll see different airlines will offer a point sale or hotels offer a point sale. Mm-hmm. When does it make sense?
Yeah. There's actually a lot of scenarios. And again, just we were talking about, the airlines, the cards, it's going to make sense for every person's unique, situation. What are our travel goals? What are we trying to accomplish? And what's the best way to go about doing it, right? What's our North Star? Now, with buying miles, or, whether it's airline miles, hotel points, it's something that, regardless of what your North Star is, regardless of your travel frequencies, it should be something that every person should, at the very least, consider.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, is there another way to book this? Just like we talked about using partner airlines. You want to fly Polaris? Well, there might be a better way. And then you start peeling back some of the more bigger picture strategy on this, especially for people, if we're big on the sign-up bonuses, right? Well, you get a bonus and then you're gone.
Right.
But you want to take a trip. We can't get any more points, or there's lots of pieces to it. But the big picture with the miles and the points is, hey, we can basically book this for substantially less than we would if we were paying cash, right? So this isn't free travel.
Yes.
This is heavily discounted travel. Think of it like that.
Right.
And the one piece I would say, regardless of what points we're using or potentially going to buy here, is we need to do our homework before we buy any of these miles. Why am I buying these miles? What am I trying to use them for? When am I going to use them? So for anybody that's not, they're still kind of in that, beginner to mid-level on just the redeeming of the points, I would tell them, it's worth looking into and doing some little testers and stuff. But until you're really competent, because if we don't use those points effectively, well, then we're not really getting as much of a deal, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the way I look at it is obviously, hey, how do we travel as close to free as possible? And then those kind of tiers where it's like, I don't want to pay full price. I want to travel free. I want to slowly just, where's those layers at? And that buying points kind of comes in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was talking in my presentation about just kind of how I go about doing it, where, all my spend, I'm on transferable points all day, every day. So 4X and 5X. I know exactly, I mean, I'm trying to not have my spend go any higher, but I know exactly how many points I'm going to generate every single year.
Right.
Ballpark, right? So what's my
Right.
points earnings potential? That's a factor. If you're organically earning more points or as much points as you need for your travel goals, then we don't need to buy points. I'm a lunatic with my travel, so even though I'm earning 3, 4, 5 million points a year, it doesn't cover me all the way.
Right.
So how can like I said, I'm not going to fly economy on a long haul flight. Like, no way. Well, how can I get this flight for the cheapest possible? And being good at using the miles, I'm going to actually look at that almost every time as a potential option where, hey, if I can buy miles for $600 to book the flight I'm trying to book, and I can preserve my transferable points for other things that I can't do,
Right.
it's always the trip in front of you. But this game in general is you got to think, how does me booking this trip impact the next trip and the next trip and the next trip? Because, I know sign up bonuses are great. The long play, you want to get set up for the long term. We don't want to take one trip.
Right.
We want to take trips. We want this on repeat,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, and this is where that big piece of buying miles kind of comes in, especially like, hey, should I use miles? Should I pay cash? How should I do it? If we're thinking ahead, that buying miles scenario, you still might get to do that trip in front of you for significantly less out of pocket, but then now you still have your points,
right,
for maybe it's more aspirational, or maybe you were so close to that redemption that you'll just need a little bit more to kind of get in there.
So give us like maybe 3 examples of a time you feel like buying miles was super valuable.
For sure. So I would say this in general, probably for both value, but then ease or ability to successfully do this without being a master. Okay. That's going to specifically be with Hilton points. That was the first time I ever bought points before.
Fascinating.
I redeemed it at the Conrad. I think I had enough points on hand for maybe 2-ish nights, but I was at the Conrad in Koh Samui, Thailand. Pool villa overlook. I mean, it was one of my earlier round like aspirational redemptions. And I knew about the 5th night free and stuff, but I didn't want to take, I wasn't spending anywhere near as much, in my early 20s. So like my points earning potential was hard. So I didn't want to take my Amex points and transfer them to Hilton. Like, I needed those for something else. And that's when I kind of broke into this thing where I'm like, okay, I've got this many points. I need this many. I can buy them for this much. We got to do math here. Where essentially, I was able to basically get 5 nights it ended up costing me. And again, this was, I was making money in my 20s, but it wasn't, it did enough. It ended up being like $150 a night out of pocket.
Wow.
For those
That's
3
great.
nights. So it was less than $500. And, the cash rates, probably maybe $600-700 a night.
That's huge.
So, hey, I saved my transferable points. I got to stay for 5 nights instead of 2 regardless. And instead of paying, $2,000, I paid about $400 to $500.
Wow.
Buying the points. So hotels, specifically Hilton, if you're interested in kind of doing this, it's your easiest place to start. The miles are always on sale. It's year round. It's the same price. That also means we don't have to worry about like rushing, like, oh my God, like, there's a sale. Like, I got to move fast. Oh my God, what do I do? That is always going to be there. And again, that's the easiest starting point. It's going to be Hilton points in particular. Okay.
That's super interesting to me. I just booked a Hilton in the city center of Dublin, and it made me a little sick to send my Amex points over there. And I wish we had talked to you first.
We don't think about what we should have done. We think about
how
we're
looking forward.
I appreciate this positivity. I appreciate it. I'm still excited about the stay, but that I didn't even think to look into buying points at all.
But now it's something we're going to think about, right?
That's right.
We still got free travel. We're going to have an awesome trip.
Yes, we are.
But now next time, hey, maybe I can look at this in other ways too. And the only way we, peel back every layer on this is Trust me, I've redeemed points through the travel portal. The only reason I got good at this is because I made mistakes as well too. So,
Absolutely.
how do we forward on the next one?
Yes, I
Yeah, I think
appreciate
with
that.
hotels, pairing the free night bookings, however that combines for each individual program, could be a good opportunity for buying points because maybe you have some
Yes.
points to cover a
Bingo.
couple nights, buy a couple for a couple more nights, and then get the
Mm-hmm.
free bonus night. I
Mm-hmm.
get that totally. So that's great.
100%.
When does it not make sense? When should you hold on, don't buy points?
Yeah. So I think just one of the biggest things is, Hilton's kind of the outlier where essentially like there's almost always a sale and it's always the same price. I mean, in the last 5 or 6 years, it's been the same, right? So it's readily available. And then you're going to see other things where, oh my God, it's a sale. It's a sale. Well, how good is the sale?
Mm,
What is it going to cost me to buy these miles? What is it going to save me alternatively, right? So again, there's going to be some different use cases in general. But I mean, hey, if you're flush on points, which I hope many of you are, but not too flush, we want to use them. If we have a boatload of points on hand, again, we want to travel for free first. If we've got a boatload of points on hand, we're already thinking a trip or two ahead. We don't need to buy points.
Yeah.
But then just like you were kind of saying with that top off, whether it's like, hey, I've got some points, I want to top it off. But I think the biggest piece is it's key about knowing having an intended use, what, when, where, and do the math
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
So
I think the intended use is my key for people.
Yes.
It's just like with sign up bonuses. Don't get shiny card syndrome. Don't get shiny, oh, there's extra 100,000, 100% bonus on buying points. If you don't have a good reason to use them, do not buy them.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like just reverse engineering it.
Yes.
It's, hey, what am I trying to accomplish? What are the different ways that I can go about doing it, as opposed to kind of we talk about planning our travel, right? It's like, okay, this is what I want to do. How can I go about doing it? Or it's like, hey, these are the points and miles I have. What can I do with it? If you are going for something specific, or your first business class flight, or your first overwater villa, well, let's reverse engineer it. What do I need to make that happen? Not here's what I have, how can I make it happen? I mean, that works too, but generally better the other way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like points and
Yeah.
miles has turned a lot of us that weren't big math people into big math people. And I think I love math level. Now. I love to know the numbers. I want to know how everything fits. And I wasn't like a math person, in school back in the day. And now I'm like so into it. I was like, they should just put kids through points and miles classes. Yeah. Maybe they'd get excited about math.
God, if I manage my finances like I manage my points, I'd be doing really well right now.
Same. Yeah.
You do not want to see my spreadsheet. It is disgusting.
I actually probably do. I probably do want to see your spreadsheet. I love a spreadsheet. So I feel like we have so much here that people can kind of grasp onto and learn from. And as we're wrapping up, because we've almost had you here an hour now, we want to know where points are taking you in 2025.
Yeah. So I do plan a lot of stuff. I'm kind of like I'm like a carry-on lifestyle, very flexible, kind of come as we go. So I've got a couple of hard plans, and then I've got some, hey, I think I want to do this. So I think my biggest focus in general has been like, hey, I need new countries. I want to try to get to 100, next year for sure.
Wow.
Stop doing some of these repeats. I'm at 87, so I got 13 to go. But I am kicking off basically the day after Christmas. I'm flying Emirates first class on the Game Changer.
Awesome.
Which is on the Chicago route right now. Flying to Dubai, and then I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro for New Year's Eve.
So awesome.
Yeah, so I got to maybe take it easy on the slammers on the flight because I have to hike up a mountain right after that. But I like a good challenge. And then so that's like that trek is about a week, and I'm flying from said no one ever. I'm flying from Kilimanjaro to Bora Bora.
Interesting.
Wow. So imagine the routing and potential redemption things. And even for me, I'm like, it's going to be an interesting route there. But I'm staying at the new Westin They just opened up for anybody that's got a lot of Marriott points. It is a wide open availability. You can get overwater villas for like I've seen as low like as 65,000 points a night.
Wow.
So Marriott people, if you got some points, Westin Bora Bora. So yeah, so doing that for I think I got 7 nights, and then I'm probably going to do a night or two at the Conrad there, and then from there I've got like about a month of open where I'm probably just going to go rip around the rest of Oceania, like go to some of the smaller little island countries like Kiribati, Tuvalu, basically get the rest of those countries off.
Ask me if I've ever heard of those countries. The answer.
I know. The words coming out of your mouth. I don't understand these words.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, I've hit a lot of the mainstays now, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm in Bora Bora, so like that's the middle of the South Pacific. While I'm in that side of the world, what other countries can I cross off? So
awesome.
Traveling with a little bit of purpose there. And then what do we have? And then in March, my business partner Eli and I, we host a huge like entrepreneur ski trip mastermind every year.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So we've done Banff, we've done Chamonix, but we are going to Japan.
Oh, fun.
In March.
It's a place to ski these years.
Yeah. Wait.
I was going to say these days, but these years lately.
Rami had a lot of good things to say about skiing in Japan.
Yeah, it's been on my list because like I said, when I was executive chef, I was living in Vail, Colorado. So all of my 20s, I lived ski out in Vail. So in terms of loving the ski thing, but Japan was talked about, and never came to fruition. And then now we're going to pull that off. It'll be about 30 of us all. Most of them are buddies and clients. We'll all be flying in style out there.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then I think
what an awesome trip.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, obviously, like, the points in the travel piece, but like we've got a pretty awesome just community of just people out there just crushing it. So to bring everybody together like that once a year, it's awesome, and just the relationships and opportunities that have stemmed from those. It's amazing. And actually, when we went to Chamonix 2 years ago, we got 32 of us on Emirates A380 JFK to Milan. And we took over the entire plane.
Same plane?
Same plane.
Crazy. And so fun.
Same plane. So we walk on there to get obviously all with points. Yeah. I'm kind of leading the crew here. And of course, like I walk onto the plane and the flight attendant's like, Tommy? I'm like, oh God, everyone's watching. They're like, oh God, of course they know Tommy. But then we get to cruising altitude. We all just take over the bar, and like the purser comes back and she's like, all right, you're in charge, aren't you? I'm just like, how did you know? But yeah, 25, 30 of your best friends on an airplane at a bar.
It's why I love to travel more so much. There is nothing like being around a bunch of people who all have the same nerdy hobby as you. It's really like nothing else I've experienced. And that is just like the next level. Like we're all meeting in the sky. We love your Instagram, and we know that our listeners are going to love it. So again, tell everybody where they can find you, and shout out someone else, a creator that you think is super valuable that they can also be learning from.
Oh. Okay. I think there's lots, but because I'm mostly on Instagram, it's Travel Like Tommy. Pretty active with my stories. So if you follow along, I live a pretty interesting, fun lifestyle where, again, I eat, sleep, and drink points and miles. So you'll see this game in full effect in real life, let's just say, or someone that really maxes this thing out. And I'll show you some pretty cool stuff you can do with the points as well, too. So Travel Like Tommy on Instagram. Eventually, I might do some cross-platform stuff, but you know what? Right now, I'm simple. Instagram, hit me up there.
Yeah. We agree. We're the same.
No time for TikTok.
Once I get like my AI assistants to do all my travel, and then I'll just have my AI people like cross-post everything. So we'll get there.
There you go.
Let's see. In terms of creators, so I'm sure many of the followers have this one, but Max Miles Points, him and I kind of started the actual kind of going in on the content. So similar time around, like maybe 4 years ago ish, maybe 5. I remember seeing some of his first slides, and this is really before Reels and stuff too, where, he had the carousels and he had this clean, because there's so much information out there. So how do we consolidate this? How do we make this clear? And I remember I was one of his first, maybe, a few hundred followers. And I'm like, this guy, okay, he knows his stuff, but the way that he's presenting it, to where someone who really might not have any idea could understand enough to be able to start peeling this back. So, yeah, I'd
That
say
was
Max Miles.
me. Max
Yeah.
Miles Points was my first account. I think my very first account in the Points and Miles world that I found. And he really is the one who taught me so much. Have not yet to meet you, Max. We're going to send this little clip since
We're
Tommy's
going to
giving
get
a
you
shout out.
on the podcast,
We
Max.
got to get you on the podcast
Well,
because he really was the first one that I really followed and kind of went down the rabbit hole with.
Yeah, I'll give him a nudge for you. So I may or may not
We
have his number,
appreciate
but yeah. So like I said, I think just from an educational perspective, short, clear, concise, visually, it's good.
All right, so we are going to let you go, I swear. But beforehand,
You're good.
we got to come back to what I asked you at the top. Okay, and I'm going to let you shorten it. I'm going to let you try to pick your favorite, if you can, meal that you have ever had. What country, what city, you're the chef, food. Give it to us. We want to know.
If I'm on an airplane, you got to have the caviar experience, right?
Okay.
So get that actual first class. I'm not going to ever order caviar, but having that experience, caviar on a plane, must do.
Okay.
And then we'll keep it on the points topic here in terms of like hotels. Let's just say hotel breakfasts, right? Especially when we start getting into those luxury ones.
Speaking my language now.
This isn't the powdered eggs and, that you're going to get at the Fairfield Inn or, whatever. Like this is over the top to where you go to those Ritz-Carltons, those St. Regis, especially like in, the Middle East or in Asia. Oh my God.
Okay.
Like, oh my God. I was at the St. Regis Maldives and I had a soft shell crab, eggs Benedict. For breakfast, they had the free flowing shit because Maldives is expensive, but the breakfast was free. So it's like we would max out hard in the mornings. Like this is our only free meal of the day, but obviously the buffet things, but that soft shell crab, eggs Benedict, I'm like, I've had thousands of different hotel breakfasts. So it's like, it's very rare that I see something like new or unique, but that was even a couple of years ago. And I still remember that.
Oh my gosh. I love a Benedict. So I get a Benedict anytime it's on the menu, especially if it's like unique sounding. So that one really, hits for me. And now I'm starving. Thank you so much. So we so appreciate you being here with us today, giving our listeners so much good stuff. We hope we'll be catching up with you at some of the conferences in the future.
Oh yeah. You will see me around for sure. Jason, thanks so much for having me. I had a great time chatting with everybody.
Thank you. We had a great time having you on. We'll see you next time.
We'll see you soon.
If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new travel rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com, and we would be happy to walk you through a free card consultation. That's also a great place to send us all of your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.